and welcome to our June Products Account webinar, where today we are going to delve into the heart of product strategy development. First, though, I want to share a few facts about Products that Count, as this is a really incredible community that I would encourage you all to maximize to the fullest extent. So first, the Products that Count community, in terms of scale, we're talking about over 500,000 product managers or product people, really, that this is reaching. And this community is one of the largest networks of product managers in the world. There's also thousands of videos, podcasts, and articles all on our website. And these are also available in the Products That Count YouTube channel, which you can get to directly from the website. And these have been authored by some incredible product leaders. So what I like to say is, if you are looking for information, if you've got a product related challenge like today, obviously you came because you're curious about how to really build a great product strategy, one that meets your customers' needs. Products That Count is a great place for you to start and to really find an expert take, somebody who's been there, done that, is an operator on whatever topic that you are looking for. So a little about me before we dive into today's content. My name is Denise Hemke. Outside of my role here as the San Francisco chapter lead for Products That Count, I am also the Chief Product Officer at NeoGov. And if you're not familiar with NeoGov, we provide a robust HR and public safety platform that's really designed for government entities. And so the goal is to provide those government entities an easy-to-use experience that meets their specific needs. So shifting gears back to our main event. Last month, we talked about really the expectations of product managers and how those have changed over time. Right? No longer are product leaders simply tasked with the job of building and launching products, right? Today's competitive landscape really demands that we are visionaries and that we are adept at aligning our customer needs with strategic business objectives to really drive success and to achieve business outcomes. So today, our speaker really shares that sentiment. And we're going to dive deeper into how do you go about building that product strategy that really aligns to your customers' needs and then ultimately helps you to achieve those business outcomes that you are aiming for. So Ankush Bagotra is a seasoned product leader who currently spearheads the communication experiences for Gen AI and monetization products at Meta. That is no small feat, Ankush. I'm so impressed. He covers really a family of apps, Instagram and Messenger and Reality Labs. This is VR and AR. So he is on the bleeding edge of things. And before he was at Meta, Ankush was the director of product at Synopsys. And he's going to talk a little bit about this and himself here in a moment. But he's really had the opportunity to lead global teams and drive significant growth. And so, and outside of those professional experiences, he's co-founded 2 startups, is an active investor and an advisor. Where he finds the time, I do not know. His range of experiences, like I said, is really impressive, going from startup scale to some of the largest consumer apps that are out there in the world today. So in today's session, Ankush is really going to unravel that journey of how to build successful product strategies, focusing on the critical importance of understanding customer requirements and collaboration. He's going to share frameworks and success stories that really highlight the inception of product strategies aimed at achieving customer success. So whether you're a product manager joining us today, a designer, or even an engineer listening in, you are going to gain valuable insight on how to create really great products that not only meet, but exceed your customer expectations. So with that, over to you, Ankush.
Thank you so much, Denise, for the introduction. So let's get started. I mean, this is a very interesting topic. At the end of the day, we see a lot of great products. We use them on a daily basis, but there is a lot of science behind how they got incepted. What are the customer problems? And if we start from customer problems, like how do you think about different dimensions, like how do we solve them? What are the various things we should look around, whether it's a B2B product or a B2C product. So we'll talk more about that. We will understand what matters to customers. Definitely, there is a lot of literature here. This is something from my personal experience across different companies, and as well as experience from my startup, and some insights and playbook for how do we build a successful customer obsessed strategy. Uh, the technology changes every year. Last few years back, AR, VR was a thing. Before that, machine learning was a thing. Now today, Gen AI is the thing. So how do we make sure at least we think about fundamentals and use these new technology tools to accelerate our roadmaps? So we'll focus more on that. About me, I think, as Denise mentioned, currently work at Meta. I lead the communication strategy, especially the platform for uh, communication, which includes messaging and calling. If you are messaging and calling on Facebook, Instagram, or you're talking on Oculus, so you are thinking about the stack I'm working on, I'm leading on. Uh, if you're thinking about some ad products where you have an opportunity to call a business, so that is the area I work on, and I lead the strategy for that. Prior to Meta, I was working purely in a B2B space, driving design automation products worldwide, where I scaled from, I would say, around 200 to 400 B2B customers worldwide. And a lot of good experiences, different cultures that you see when you operate at a worldwide scale. And before that, I co-founded two startups. One is in equity, a Indian version of and eBay, and a SaaS platform for a learning project. A lot of good experience from the startup side. So some of this will be covered as you see strategy from a startup perspective versus a B2B to a B2C consumer app. So I'll talk more about that. So while we think about product strategy, I mean, there are a lot of things in the market, different templates, different types of things. So I broadly think it from three dimensions. Uh, the first question to me is like, what are you selling? Because every company, every startup, every product manager, every salesperson has a selling point of view. And we'll talk more on these questions. What exactly you are selling in your current role? If you introspect it, what are the, and whom are you selling? The second question is, whom are you selling? A lot of time we are fixated on a stakeholder or a B stakeholder, but for a very successful product strategy, and getting a need to think about different stakeholders, and we'll talk more about that. And the last important question is what matters to them. When I say them, is whom you are selling, that is your customers and their customers. So these are the three broad areas we'll talk today. And a lot of discussion, my viewpoint is around these three areas as we go deep dive into. So when we talk about what are we selling, so essentially the first question is, are you selling a vitamin or you are selling a painkiller? When I essentially say that, is it some sort of a service which is okay to have, or is it really the pain point of the customer? We are so busy in selling, like we forget, like, hey, is it really a vitamin or is it a painkiller? So getting some reflection on how to find what is a vitamin and what is a painkiller. We'll talk some of these things. but it's essential to at least do a reflection, because your chances of solving or selling a successful product depends a lot how you position what you solve. And typically, if you see about these are a few top-notch brands of the world. So if I think about Apple, their mission is to provide the best user experience through innovations in hardware, software, and ecosystem. If I go to Amazon, they want to be the world's best consumer-centric company. They want to operate and give users the experience where they can buy anything. If I think about Nike, they want to be inspiration for every athlete. So essentially, if you dive deep into missions of these brands, some of these brands, there are more, definitely more. Uh, so they're very clear about what they want to sell. And every product from some of these successful brands have knocked down what they want to sell, who are the customers, and what exactly they are selling. They are not selling everything, as Apple is selling experiences. Amazon is selling something online in a best possible inventory and a good price and a convenience. Nike is giving you, starts with athletes. Uh, they want to be inspirations. They want to make sure that at least the problem of shoes is solved and you focus on something else. The core problems are solved. So that's the inspiration from some of these brands who are thinking about taking the hardest problems. They know what they are selling. So we should definitely think about that perspective. Question is, as we get more, whom are we selling? A lot of time, our sale pitch while we build a product strategy is for it's a some developer, maybe some executive, but there is a whole range of stakeholders. There's a whole range of internal and external stakeholders. When I talk about internal stakeholders, uh, let's take example of Apple iPhone. To make it successful, definitely consumers are the external stakeholders, but there are sales, operation, data science, UX. A lot of teams are involved that have to give their best to make the best strategy. So it's super important, like you think about all internal and external stakeholders, make sure they are part of your strategy. And when we talk about external stakeholders, there are different types of stakeholders. For instance, if you are selling a B2B tool uh, to a customer, there might be a stakeholder who's evaluating your product. There might be a stakeholder who has to do the finance for you, and there has to be a stakeholder like a CXO who has to make sure that the value, the core problem is solved for which your products are being used. So it's critical to identify internal and external stakeholders. Uh, and there is a different level of motivation for each stakeholder. The stakeholder at engineering or a exact user level has a motivation like, hey, product should work. It will solve some of the problems for my team. The motivation for a CXO is like, we are solving the bigger problem for the customer. And a motivation for an internal stakeholder, let's say a data scientist or UX, is, hey, I'm giving my UX designs, do they work well? If they work well, what is the next problem I should solve? And these stakeholders, both internal and have different types of visibility. Some are thinking in a very narrow scope related to their work, nothing wrong on that. Some are thinking very broadly, some are thinking horizontally, vertically. So it's important to any questions?
Hey, Ankush, sorry, I hate to interrupt, but your voice is coming out just in and out just a tiny bit periodically. I don't know if there's anything on your internet side that can be tweaked or adjusted.
Uh, Let me see. Is it better now?
You sound clear now, and you sounded clear for lots of it, just there are these pockets periodically.
Okay, let me try
You-
to see
Okay,
what I do. Okay, please interrupt me if it goes again.
will
Uh,
do.
not sure what I can do, but okay,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
absolutely.
And uh, these stakeholders have different requirements. Some wants to solve flow problems, someone wants to solve UX problems. So it's important to identify and understand their requirements in the dimension of their motivations, visibility, and requirements. And the third perspective is what matters to them. Are we really solving any pain point or adding value? When I essentially say that, I've seen a lot of customer evaluations where we go and pitch against a competition, and we are selected only if we bring a differentiation. No one has time to migrate an existing tool. No one has time to replace the existing phone. No one has time to, everyone is busy. Unless you are really solving that point, you are a painkiller or you are adding any differentiated value. Uh, so it becomes very critical if we think from that perspective. So is my voice still okay or chunking out?
Yep, so far so good.
Okay, please call out. Sorry for that. Uh, the second important aspect is trust. Sure, a lot of times what we have seen is uh, we do the initial part of the deal where we say that, hey, we'll sell you this experience. We negotiate prices, we negotiate the deal. But usually the long-term engagements are only possible if you build a trust with your partner or your customers. And there are different ways you should think about for building trust. It is important because you want to build a customer strategy not for 6 months, 12 months. You want to build for years, and you want to make sure the trust is built. And last important piece is communication. Uh, a lot of time, again, communication is done at local levels. Sometimes it's not done at other levels. Sometimes some stakeholders are being involved, communicated. So if you are creating a product strategy, you need to think about all stakeholders. You need to think about different ways to keep this audience, internal and external, well communicated. Uh, so I'll give some examples like when we were doing some evals or when we sell products, a lot of times we do a bottom-up alignment where we say that, hey, we agree and align on this type of roadmap. But it's extremely important that you take that bottom alignment to make sure the leadership is aligned and you are well communicating like, hey, now we have aligned. So what are the next steps? And if these are the next steps, what are the things we should track? So we should think from that because communication is extremely, extremely important in building a successful product strategy. So these are the three dimensions. We'll talk about how do you see these dimensions from what you should do, what are the different dimensions you should think about while you build your roadmap. So before I go to the playbook, I think this is one of the favorite quotes from Jeff Bezos. And I think this Amazon is one of the companies where, I mean, they have one of the principals also in the company. It's all about customers. Now, a lot of thing is said about, hey, customer obsessed strategy, customer centric strategy, but we'll see what is a playbook and framework where you should think about different dimensions to build uh, a customer centric strategy. So I think on the playbook side, one of the things is let's start with how do you solve pain and so the most important thing you should think about is what are the core problems. And it requires a lot of grit, and sometimes it takes time. So need to spend time with different stakeholders, people who are using your products, people who are building roadmaps. It's not a slam dunk thing like, hey, someone given you like 10 problems and now you go and solve it. You need to go deep into what are the core problems, what are the real pains. And it requires time. It's okay to spend time because this is the basis of uh, a successful strategy. Unless you know the problems, unless you spend time, you might get some of the requirements. But I personally believe like a lot of investment, especially your roadmaps, uh, the time spent with your customers, feedback, surveys, and everything. A lot of data has to go in to find, are we doing the work? Is actually solving some painkiller? Is actually solving some pain through a painkiller? Or we are just building some additional non-core services? And if you are investing in non-core business, trust me, in matter of time, you will be replaced, or uh, it's difficult. I mean, think about Apple, every new version of iPhone, people think that, hey, it's a similar iPhone with similar, maybe a little better, more tag price, but Apple ensures every version of the product has something, better camera, better features, uh, but they don't compromise on the overall experience, but differentiation goes on. And they know the best about what are the customer problems. And if they are introducing something like a special audio or something else, a new camera version, everything works in their ecosystem. Nothing breaks. You don't have to restart the iPhone multiple times. So please spend time on finding. The other dimension to think about is, how do we intercept 3, 6, 9, 12-month roadmap? A lot of time we are fixated on immediate need deals, like what are the requirements in next 1 2 months. At times, it's okay when you want to win a business. You are stretched against a competition. You have to uh, build a very aggressive point of view and deliver very, very pointedly. But if you're thinking about growing long term with the customer, you need to really intercept like what is their roadmap, what are they thinking, and how you can accelerate that. If they are thinking about a feature 12 months down the line, and you have any offering which can help them accelerate in 6 months, this is the best thing you can help a customer with your product strategy. And trust me, we have manuals, brochures, a lot of meetings. All the stakeholders never know that what you offer unless you actually intercept their roadmap and say that, hey, for this feature, we have this offering, we can accelerate you. So that type of meetings and interactions needs to happen. The other important perspective is understanding the ecosystem. Uh, Maybe you are delivering a value of ecosystem. There are other players. For instance, in my past life, worked with Apple as a customer. When we work with Apple, Apple uses our tools. It also forces its own customers who are using their IPs to force our tools. So essentially, if we are able to successfully sell our tools to these customers, and we know their customer is also pushing, so I want to understand the ecosystem and how can I remove the friction for their customers also, and who are the other players in the ecosystem. It's important. And other perspective from that is, if you know who is in the ecosystem of your customers, probably you can offer a wider range of offerings to that customer rather than giving a pointed requirement offering. And that way you can add more value because you know the ecosystem partners, you know who and what are their additional requirements. And it makes you really, really sticky, because for a customer to migrate you to a vendor, he has to think about how to migrate the entire ecosystem. Is it still again chunky?
You just jumped out for a moment there. But
Great.
we've been going smooth for a while.
Uh, is it okay now?
Right
Okay.
now sounds good.
Uh,
Not right now.
okay. Uh, and uh,
Ankush, maybe one recommendation, which I hate to do, but maybe we have to go there, is
is it
maybe
better now?
try turning off video for a moment. See if that helps.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea.
I will thank Dan from our audience, who
Is it better?
so far so good.
Okay. Uh, I think the other dimension to look around is, how do you accelerate your customer roadmap? A lot of times we are very pointed on incremental releases, incremental products. How do you optimize certain things uh, so that customers can be enabled faster with better quality? When I say better quality, it's a system of like, how do you testing inside as well as on the customer side, feedback, there's a tighter feedback loop. Uh, and that's where you are reducing the friction between you and your customers. They are getting things faster with a better quality. And the last important dimension is, how do you increase value uh, for your customers to their customers? And that goes back to the point of ecosystem. A lot of times we are fixated on 2, 3 requirements. Maybe customer is asking, maybe their customers have 15 requirements, 15, 20, maybe more. And our customers don't know, hey, we can really their customers. So a lot of times, sometimes doing a joint meeting with their customers, understanding requirements, uh, and solving some of these pain points really helps you to solve pain and add value to the overall ecosystems. So if I think about solving pain, these are different dimensions I would think about it. Uh, and there was a important perspective on uh, building trust. This is very important. Now you have a customer. How do you build trust? And a lot of times we talk about delivering, hey, we'll deliver X, Y, Z, but what are the right metrics? How do you define thresholds? What are the milestones? How do we track it? Uh, if you have a very systematic way to think about it, what is your North Star? Does it align with their customer North Star? And these metrics are delivered in a very milestones manner. Uh, it builds trust. No one wants to get emails, long length emails. People want to see, hey, what was delivered now? What is delivered next? Is it improved? Is it on track? And these are the metrics that matters. Are they working well? So instead of generally going, please make sure what matters to your customers. And these metrics are different for different customers. It will be different for B2B, B2C, startups. But there is a science, like you can define what are the common metrics and you can drive the execution around that. And since we now identified a lot of stakeholders, it's important that we enable continuous feedback loops. It cannot be like, hey, we'll take the feedback on a weekly meeting. It has to be a feedback through your support channels, through your ratings, through your, you have to enable all such feedbacks. And you'd enable it for different types of stakeholders. Maybe a feedback from CXO, maybe feedback from the people on the ground, maybe people who are installing your tools. So to make a great product, you have to enable these channels, and you need to figure out a way how to prioritize what matters most out of this feedback. Definitely, you'll be getting a lot of feedback. Uh, how do we prioritize that feedback is also important. And while we build trust, a lot of times we are in a process to please customers, and at times some things goes underwater. My recommendation is to flag, right away flag, and it's okay to build a culture of bringing up the red flags. Uh, if you as a CXO or you as a leader, a engineer is very comfortable in building that culture, everyone around you will talk in language of red flags. And why red flags are important? Because this is the areas where you can help. And these are areas where you can get management attention if something is not working. Instead of finding it towards the end, where customer gets gives you a nasty feedback, it's important to build a culture of red flags. And when I say red flags, your meetings should start with red flags because these are things which are not working. Your CXO reports to different stakeholders, internal or external, should start with red flags. The moment you start it, everyone adjusts to it. People appreciate, people are ready to help. Otherwise, finding it towards the end of the launch, things are not working, deadlines are delayed, is a deadly recipe for a customer strategy. This has to be factored as part of you internal and external stakeholders. This is very important, like you enable all internal and external stakeholders. They should feel a sense of ownership in the strategy you are building. Uh, you should create a culture where all the stakeholders are giving you best ideas, innovation. At the end of the day, you have full right to say yes and no based on some reasoning. But as long as stakeholders are enabled, uh, they give your best sense. They can be a participant or they can be owner of the idea. Uh, for instance, if you're building a great product, if you take a UX designer or a DS in a customer meeting and enable them to show their designs, they'll get a direct feedback rather than going through hoops. Maybe they have better ideas to solve, and you get the best of all the stakeholders. Maybe feedback from uh, a CXO, because a CXO is thinking about 6 months down the line the problem, and he has certain ideas to fix it, uh, and you are not thinking in your current roadmap. So it's highly recommended, like you enable all the things, make a sense of ownership rather than if they work well, your plan is going to be successful. Everyone is geared to your success. So I would highly encourage if you enable these stakeholders in different capacities and uh, and ensure that they are aligned. A last important piece on building trust is question status quo. Don't fear change. If a certain thing is done in certain way for years, does not mean it can't change. Uh, a typical example is Gen AI breaking status quo. One of the examples, like every day you hear it like, hey, these are the new innovations, people will lose their jobs. Uh, Instead of having fear on that, you use such tools to your advantage. How do you, going back to the basics, like how do you use this type of change to enable new innovations and adding value to customers? Uh, a lot of time we work in a culture where it's top down. People are not ready to listen. Uh, that does not mean that you don't question. If there are better ideas, uh, and definitely you will have your own reasoning to talk about these ideas. I would highly encourage building trust. Uh, you stay a question status quo, and this approach is also okay to work with customers. They appreciate you bringing a new perspective. This approach is absolutely okay to work with executives. They also appreciate, like, hey, someone is thinking more about improving things, bringing efficiency, bringing new tools. So I would highly encourage to question status quo as part of your strategy. The last important piece is communication. We talked about stakeholders. We talk about finding how to uh, finding how to find areas to add value to solve pain. We talked about building trust, and communication is the last important critical piece of this playbook. Uh, so first important piece is extreme clarity. People understand things. A simple example in your spec is some acronyms. When you say ABC, people don't know what is ABC. Please assume people are coming from different backgrounds. You have to make sure that they are on the same language as in your head. You are communicating with extreme clarity, uh, defining what exactly it means, because a lot of times the message is hidden in the very cryptic. It's always advised to use very simple language. Make sure you're communicating the right way. And this is very important from product strategy. Now you are talking to internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and you are sitting at a very reasonable point where you see different types of views. And trust me, if you are enabling all your stakeholders, no one in the company is seeing that view, and no one is talking about that view. Uh, our CXO may be thinking about a level at a customer CXO, but you are seeing a picture where you have perspectives from all the different stakeholders, their requirements, their motivations, uh, taking all these pieces and building a customer strategy and roadmap is what you can do. A lot of time people miss this part. They're fixated on, hey, I got a requirement from my customer, uh, but what is the requirement from all the stakeholders for this problem? And what does the bigger picture looks like? Who are the stakeholders? No one talks about that. No one communicates about that. We know it very well, but we don't share. It may be well worth to share. People appreciate the bigger picture, bigger perspective, and how does it align with the long-term story of your product to your strategy. So I'll strongly appreciate building a culture of sharing big picture through communication. And since we have now engaged a lot of stakeholders, they are doing their best. They are giving you the best requirements, and you're building. It's extremely important to build a culture of gratitude, saying just a thanks, whether it's a customer, internal, external stakeholder. Uh, a lot of time we assume like, hey, he has to work for me. That can be changed. Like, hey, we have to work together. And what you see in that environment is people give you more rather than assuming he's working for you. Even if your employee, if he's your peer, is your boss, if this culture is there and you are appreciating people for their contribution and sense of ownership, you'll see magically a lot of things adds up to your product strategy. And communication again, yes, you appreciate, but sending a short email, copying the right stakeholders, saying thank you for all your help is very, very small things, but are very, very effective when you work with different stakeholders and build the product strategy with these. Last important thing is uh, celebrating wins. It's important. We are in a lot of pressure to deliver. We forget like everything towards that delivery is a collection of small wins. And if you celebrate small wins, team is motivated, your customers are motivated to help you more. And if you are just in a brutal way of like, hey, delivery one, delivery two, delivery three, probably you miss that entire thing. So that is also a part of communication. You need to push for a culture of celebrating wins. And and starts with very small things. Hey, this is the first delivery, amazing delivery. And again, email, text, post, tweet, whatever works in your way, feedback, peer feedback, 360 feedback. Please do that. And it's extremely important to keep all your, it goes back to the same point, communicating with stakeholders, respecting them and appreciating them. So I would highly encourage to see, to at least get these things as part of your communication playbook. So with that, I think I would like to conclude. We talked about the first important thing is how do you identify and enable right stakeholders, the internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. Currently, you may be fixated with one or two stakeholders. I would really spend time to find who are the people that matters, starting from if you are a developer or engineer, other developers, product managers, XFNs, customers. If you're a product manager thinking about operations, sales, supply chain, CXOs, customer supply chain, and even their customers. So please spend time to see if you can identify such folks. And a lot of time the pressure is on to sell, and sell. Please take a breath and think about what you are selling. Is it a painkiller or is it a vitamin? If it is a painkiller, go intense to understand it. If it is a vitamin, be conscious about it. At certain point, you may become irrelevant. So you need to work continuously to make sure you're solving the pain points and offering a painkiller rather than a vitamin. And since you have now stakeholders, as we talked about communication, continuously communicate, build a culture of gratitude, raise red flags, and communicate with customers, their customers, understand need, complete the circle in terms of feedback. If someone has given you certain requirements, make sure you have a way to communicate and it's incorporated as part of your strategy. You do this, you are going to build trust. And this trust is something that takes your products, contracts, tools, services from short-term to long-term engagements. You're gaining more trust, you're getting more business. So that dimension has to be looked, and your product strategy continuously evolves around it. Customer trusts you, gives you more business, your strategy is more refined, and the flywheel goes on. And while you do these type of things, you definitely accelerate your customers. And that's where a lot of these companies, the companies like Nike, Amazon, or Meta, they are accelerating their customers. And there are a lot of offerings, their ecosystem things works. And they are able to ship experiences in a very short amount of time. So would definitely focused on accelerating the customers also. So with that, I would like to say thank you. And my LinkedIn, and I can be reached at this email. Very passionate about this subject. If there are any questions, comments, happy to take that.
We've definitely got questions. So for those of you on, please stay. This is the part where you get to own the agenda, or co-own the agenda at least. And by that, I mean, please put your questions into the Q&A. I will field as many as I possibly can through this process. So would love, Ankush, to start with the first one, which is you talked about this example of a vitamin versus, a painkiller. Going back to that, can you maybe dig a little bit deeper into that explanation or provide some examples of, what products you might classify into sort of this vitamin versus a painkiller category?
Sure. So I see a lot of products where you build some side services. Maybe a typical example, I'll take it from my previous company, where you are actually building a core tool to enable all these companies like Apple and NVIDIA to make their phones faster. So without that tools, you can't make a iPhone or a chip. This is such a strong dependency where you are core to their process. And when you are core to such things, you demand uh, royalty, you demand respect, but you have to deliver. And going back to the concept of vitamins, I've seen certain products where you are offering a service just for sake of it. Hey, I'm doing a translator from A to B, which may not be the core of the business of your customers. So anyone can come and replace you. Uh, Going back to painkillers again. So when we deployed the product in our last company, we built an ecosystem of scripts, which are actually providing certain functionalities to replace us. It takes around 3 to 4 years just to replace our tool with a competitive tool. There's a value added over years. Uh, so that's how I say that solving the pain, which is the core of the customer.
That makes sense. I think one of the tests that I like to use sometimes is like, if budgets were cut, could they get rid of your product? Right. And I think to your point, if a budget was cut, sounds like in that case of the company that you work for, they can't get rid of your product. It's absolutely essential to them running their business. But in other cases, there might be products that aren't essential, right, that they could get rid of. And you can kind of, in the consumer world, I think you can think about it that same way. If somebody had less money to spend, where would they maybe stop spending it? What's kind of essential?
Yeah, that's true. Uh,
Yeah. No, that's great. Maybe pivoting then from that, would love to hear a bit about how do you establish or determine the motivations of your internal stakeholders? You know, sometimes it's hard to know exactly where they're coming from without explicitly asking.
Yeah, so I think it's always starts from you. You need to have a point of view, and you need point of view should not be too strong. But a lot of time the stakeholders don't know even grade. You go, I'm seeing what are you think about this problem? You have such and such experience. You have to motivate them with some cedar, some sort of a statement. You can't go open-ended. So you have to do your work and go to stakeholders. Hey, if we do this project, how do we collaborate? What is the thing based on your experience we can bring to these customers? And maybe we can become more sticky, maybe we can earn more trust. And you need to invite the stakeholders to some of the customer meetings, customer interactions, so they feel that a sense of ownership. It worked when you invite a, a data scientist or an engineer to a customer meeting. Uh, Sometimes they compliment you so well that customer is really happy, like, hey, uh, I'm getting a real value. I was not thinking about it. Now I'm thinking about building this because you have a better offering. So to your answer your question, please enable them, give them a good, clear perspective without any biases. Uh, Ask them how they can collaborate. Bring them to different types of meetings, like a customer meeting, and magic happens.
Nice, nice. I like that. Bring them along on the journey. We've got another question, and this one's maybe going to go deep into your experiencing or your experiences here at Meta. But, you know, in at Meta, like, are there things that you can share that you think are unique practices in terms of, you know, researching user needs or identifying MVP functionality that really are differentiating, right? That allow you to succeed more often than not. And kind of as a follow-up to that curious question on there on, you know, sort of what percent of the features are successful or fail after having gone through that process?
Yeah, so I'll make it generic. I think it again goes back. For me, my customers in Meta are Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. We are a platform team. We build IPs, which everyone uses for calling. But in general, the same principle applies. But there are certain dimensions, especially for these big companies, is to think about scale, because you are not building it for 10 users, 100 users, million users. You're building it for worldwide billion plus scale. Uh, and that forces you to think about different dimensions like resources, compute resources, as well as how do you measure the success on these outcomes with experimentation, A/B testing, continuous rollout, and challenges with different geographical rollouts. Some have good internet speed, some have regulations. So a lot of different dimensions. But summarizing it, so most of the philosophies remain same. Only I have to identify the I need to intercept where Facebook or Reality Labs is going in next 6 months to 1 year, maybe longer. What investment should we build to keep them accelerate their roadmaps? And how do I make this thing, my delivery is metrics driven? People see the right dashboards. And lastly, from the delivery point of view, uh, how do we enable the experimentation fast so we test and fail fast?
I love that. I think that how do you experiment quickly, kind of coupled with what are the metrics and laying that out up front, um, is a really, I think, piece that frankly we all should be doing, but not every, for a lot of companies that still may be aspirational, right? And so I think that piece is really critical to success. And ironically, I think even my internet went out for a minute there as you were talking about different internet speeds. So if I missed part of your response, hopefully at least the community got all of it.
Okay.
All right. So another question, when applying customer feedback, what is something that you do now that you wish you had done earlier that helps build trust with more senior leaders when you're questioning the status quo?
I think I would have started early in the game, very basic, what I called as a whiteboarding. Like, again, who are my stakeholders in my one-on-ones or in the right meetings, seeding this idea and to get a feedback early. And to see that idea, I would have built a basic point of view. And one other important thing for CXOs is that time is limited. Uh, what is the impact you will solve? Get some directional feedback early in the game rather than building an entire product and then seeing like things don't work. So for them, three things matter. What is the basic idea in very simple language? What is the impact that you can bring? And third, how you can build a trust in what you deliver. Which essentially goes back to the point of metrics, communication, and things related to communication.
Right, right. Alignment is certainly communication, and then the actual communication, how are you going to build trust? And then how are you going to measure that you're actually driving towards a business outcome? That's great. So as a follow-up, there was a secondary question that says, as a product leader, what are some of the specific things you do on your team to foster a culture where product managers themselves, the folks that maybe work for you, really kind of question the status quo as well, right? That they are not accepting.
Yeah, I think that's critical because if you are a product manager, I think your XFNs are pretty smart in delivering. Your engineers are smart, your DS are smart, but I think you can really help them uh, building a road, and that road is like what is a 6 months, 1 year, 2 year road, uh, so that people can give their best. You get the best input from your XFNs. Uh, Second is a lot of time we're thinking about day-to-day tactical stuff. It's important to make sure you have a dedicated percentage of time on innovation, competition analysis, and your customer needs, which is very, very different from uh, your day-to-day execution stuff. Yes, you have to deliver in next 1 month, 2 months, but you also have to build a strategy for next 1 or 2 years. It has to go continuous. It can't be sequential.
That makes sense. I think we've got time for one or two more. All right, so can you offer practical examples of celebrating wins beyond Slack messages and shout outs? I've yet to see a company do this successfully.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, and it applies from uh, different setups. A lot of times, if someone is some STO is really instrumental in delivering something, uh, we ensure we appreciate the customer, build a culture of people who are takers. And these can be different things. A very simple thing is a email going to CXOs, copying their management. There is a cross-company recognition also, and sometimes there are monetary awards, sometimes there are ways to give them recognition in all hands. So there are different forums. If you start build it, these are not very costly solutions. Even a simple email. Uh,
I think we've lost Ankush again, unfortunately. Bear with us just a moment.
Dennis, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. So we heard you
Uh,
talking about some of the things that aren't costly, right? So you could, in a town hall or a company all hands, give somebody a shout out. We also heard you talking about maybe sending emails to a manager or sending emails, maybe it's a partner, um, then sending it even to somebody in their management chain so that they're getting acknowledged. So there were a couple different kind of strategies that we heard before we lost you.
yeah, and I mean, in my opinion, in a company, there are a lot of other resources, like there are company awards, there are team awards. A lot of time managers are not utilizing these resources. It does not cost any money, but it's just a matter of recognizing, filling up some forms, or even writing a small email. But they are very important to you. And a lot of times these resources are unused, unfortunately.
Yeah, you are spot on. And a lot of times, it doesn't take a gift, right? A lot of those times, a lot of those things are free, to simply give somebody that shout out in the all hands. Um, but there might be something even beyond that you can do monetarily. Uh, my last one,
And
and
I think one simple thing I will about Meta is culture of hash thanks. If you write hash thanks and write something, it goes on the wall of the person and the manager. It's as simple as writing hash thanks and writing a line. So,
I love
but it's very powerful.
I love that. So I know you have a bonus slide. It's your last slide and it aligns well to one of our questions, which is, what's your advice or top 3 tips for an aspiring product manager? And I know that you have a bonus slide, which is a bunch of resources. So you want to give us a quick peek at that last slide? Because I think that probably has a lot of things you'd recommend.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, these are few books, not all the books. I would highly encourage uh, to think about some of these dimensions I talked about in my playbook. And in addition to that, there are good links on Strategy, TechCrunch, Product School, uh, Product Hunt, and Product That Counts now. I missed that link. Uh, so, uh, and, and last important thing is very important. There are earning statements for companies. Uh, there's a lot of Q&A or resources being published by startup accelerators and incubators. They're talking about new startups, what they're building. And one of the free resources is Google Alerts. It's very free, like in a sense, like you write a query on Google. Hey, I want to, if you're solving a problem on generative AI, you want to know what is happening. Yes, you can Google, but Google does a very smart way to do for you. You write something and enable the alert. The email comes to your inbox, and it's a very simple email, like it tells you what happens in generative AI around the world for that day.
That's
So
awesome. Well, that is an amazing list. I flashed it up here. This is Ankush's list, and maybe I'll add two more to it, which is Lenny's got a great podcast, gets a lot of press here by a lot of product folks who are big fans. And then Reforge, especially if you're a aspiring product manager, has a ton of product management classes. I know that folks on my team that are typically new to the role will take the product management foundations class. So there's a lot of great assets out there for you. So would recommend you take advantage of them.
and I think one more, in addition to that, is there is a podcast called The Skip. This is by a Meta former VP, Mr. Singhal. I would highly encourage you guys to also see that. It's a good resource for budding product managers.
Sounds great. I'll even have to check it out myself. Well, Ankush, in the spirit of your showing gratitude, I want to say thanks for taking your time to share with all of us today. And for everybody who attended, whether you are here with us live and ask these amazing, engaging questions, or whether you're watching this on playback, just want to thank you all for being a part of this community. So thank you so much, though. You were an amazing speaker and really had a lot to offer the product community.
Thank you so much, and really apologize for my internet connections, probably which I can't control, but I really apologize for that, and I really enjoyed talking to.
Yeah.
I hope it helps folks.
Yes, the demo gods, we cannot control them. But thanks again. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.